Hi, I'm Carl DeForest, and welcome to a special edition of Community Focus. I'm here with a very special guest. Perhaps you'll recognize him from Oceans 11, 12, and 13. I do believe I'm here with Brad Pitt, if I'm not mistaken.
I can understand the confusion, but no, I'm not. I am Bill Furman, from Euclid, Ohio. I've never played in any of those movies, but I can understand.
You came all the way here from Euclid?
All the way. I live in Brunswick, actually. I was born and raised in Euclid, and I have lived in Brunswick for the past 30 years, so I absolutely consider Brunswick to be my home.
Fabulous. Well, I've known you for over 2 decades. There's some people who have not had that advantage. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You grew up in Euclid, which I didn't even know until recently when we started working on this project. So tell me a little bit about growing up in Euclid and how you ended up in Brunswick.
Well, I grew up in Euclid, and I believe I moved out when I was 21 years old, moved to Cuyahoga Falls for a couple of years before I took root again in Brunswick, and here we are now. But in Euclid was had a lot of family values attached to it, and we grew up in a kind of a humble sort of way. My dad was a factory worker, and he was the only provider for a family of 6. Didn't have much, but what we did have was good values. You'd often see us walking up to the ice cream shop to get ice cream one night, or find us on Little League baseball fields almost daily, and walking up to church together every Sunday without fail. So we were a close-knit family of 4 kids, and I had the 2 greatest parents anybody can ever imagine.
Well, I was lucky enough to meet you a number of years ago, and I was also lucky enough to meet your dad. So tell us a little bit about your pop, and we'll weave that into why you're
Sure,
here today.
I'm more than happy to, because after all, he is the inspiration behind this. My dad, again, was a factory worker, very hard worker. Oftentimes he'd come home with scratches on his head, rashes on his hands, and it was just a hard way to go, right? But whatever he had, which really wasn't much, he was first in line to give. He was the most God-fearing, decent, genuine, kind-hearted, compassionate, generous man I have ever known in my life. And many others would agree. He was such a hard worker. And you know what? He, as they say, he preached to us every day. And if he had to, he'd use his words. You know, he set such good examples for us.
You know, I've not told you this, but every once in a while I think about your dad because I'm a grandpa now, and my daughter grew up in Brunswick, moved away, lived in San Francisco, lived in Portland, Oregon, both 2 good places to get out of right now. And now she lives 1 street to the south of me, and I have 3 grandchildren. And I was talking to a neighbor last night because I have Grandpa Tuesdays. They come over for dinner and play.
Fantastic.
And I feel blessed beyond belief that I have that connection with my grandchildren. And that reminds me of your dad because of, the baseball and football games
Sure.
and things of that nature. And
Yeah.
him and I were equipment managers for the Raiders. We never got the credit we deserved because every win should have come back to us, and we should have had a parade or something like that.
It all started with you and me.
It all started.
All the wins.
And ended with us, yeah.
It certainly did.
So tell us what you're here today to talk about.
I'm here to talk today the short version is to promote kindness. Promote kindness in our community, promote kindness in surrounding communities. I have kind of big visions here, Carl. And the end game for me is to establish a random act of kindness day in this community. And again, not just this community. I have visions and plans actually to visit other communities and try to make this grow. I think the time is now. I think the time has passed. It's kind of just like growing a tree. The best time to grow a tree was 30 years ago, but the second best time is now. It's time. It's time that kindness starts winning a little bit and it becomes more of the norm than what it has been. And you only really need to go on social media, for instance, to really realize that kindness is losing its foothold. And at some point, we need to kind of get that back.
Yeah, I would say there was a time when I was growing up, and I bet you would agree that if you and I knew each other in school or through sports or whatever the case may be, you could have this as an opinion, I could have this as an opinion, and we could agree to disagree. And now it's, you're the enemy, you're this, you're that, you're a horrible individual because you don't see what I see, and how can you be so stupid
of course,
foolish and all this other stuff. So I would agree with you that a little kindness goes a long way. But how would that manifest itself in what your ideas are? Do I have to get something for somebody, hold a door? Do I have to make a speech? What is it going to look like if I want to take part in your random act of kindness day?
All of those are perfect examples, right down to holding the door. The other day, I held the door, and it seemed so innocent, but I held it extra long because the elderly lady who was walking towards the door was a little bit further than you would typically hold the door for, correct? So I stood there for an awful long time. And you know what that did? It got her to say something very nice to me, like how nice that was to stick around for her. And, I quipped back with something, some sort of joke. I forgot what it was. But we laughed and we connected momentarily. So something simple as that has no financial attachment whatsoever, is an absolute example of kindness. And can you imagine if anybody who participates on this particular day did one thing like that? It becomes more of a movement, right? So other examples. A few weeks ago, at this wellness store that I go to quite a bit where I work and mentor, they have the best sourdough bread, by the way. They get their bread on Tuesdays.
That's good stuff.
And it's gone by Wednesday afternoon sometimes. So I was in there and I purchased some items, and including a loaf of sourdough bread. And I decided I was going to buy another loaf and leave it with the owner to give to the next person she saw fit. Well, I went back that next week, and the owner told me that she gave it to a young lady. And when she gave it to the young lady, she teared up and she almost cried over this loaf of bread. Apparently she was on kind of a lower budget, but she insisted to shop in that store because she wanted to do well by her family. So the fact that somebody would leave her a loaf of bread actually brought her to tears. And Carl, it's not the loaf of bread that made her cry, although it's pretty good bread, if I didn't mention that. It's the thought. It's the thought that somebody can be kind and leave a simple loaf of bread for somebody. And that's not hyperbole. That is the actual effects that kindness has on human beings.
Okay. Have you ever read any information about kindness and how it manifests itself in the individual doing the kind act? Because when you tell that story, I can tell it reverberates with you. You'll remember that forever, and you'll remember that store owner telling you that story, and you'll reflect on that maybe during a hard time or during a good time, or maybe while you're out fishing or walking, and it'll make you smile. Have you ever done any reading on the subject?
That's a wonderful question, and I can absolutely speak to that. My disclaimer is that I am no expert on this, but I know some people who are. What I've been learning over the last several years comes from functional medicine practitioners, right? And they know much more than I know about the human nervous system. There's two sides. There is the sympathetic side and the parasympathetic side. And the parasympathetic side allows you to relax more and to digest your food more and to sleep better. It puts you in a calming state. And that's the side we all want to be on in our nervous system. Well, what's responsible for that is our vagus nerve, and doing kind deeds positively stimulates that vagus nerve and has an absolute physical effect, a positive effect on your nervous system, and puts you in that rest and digest and relaxation mode, and it absolutely serves the person on the giving end as well as it serves the person on the receiving end because of that.
So here's a classic example of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No.
Perfect. So you get it 100%.
100%. No, I've done a lot of reading on it, and people who give back to others usually live a longer life and a higher quality life because, as you said, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic is attached to the sympathetic, and your breathing is better, your heart rate is better, it decreases your blood pressure and things of this nature, and it makes you feel better because it's reasonable. And if it's just we're animals basically, and if you can do something positive for someone else, it's going to make you feel good, and the residual effect may be that they're going to do something positive for somebody else. I hope that's the end goal here.
I'm catching myself smiling, and what do you think smiling is a result of, right? that side of the nervous system that we all want to live on. So just recalling some of the experiences I've had over the years with, doing my part. I ran into a young lady that I did a kind deed for, complete stranger. But I ran into her 2 years later. I recognized her. I approached her. I didn't even know her name. Well, she hugged me. And we sat and we talked about 10 minutes. She introduced herself. Now I know her name. Now she knows mine. We connected. She told me about her family. She told me she's a Christian. She told me she prayed for me that night after she was on the receiving end of a kind deed. And if that doesn't speak to what we're talking about right now, I don't know what does. This goes beyond just a simple loaf of sourdough bread, for instance. And it goes so far beyond that. And now it has a positive effect on mood, on positive energy. And I think it manifests so much more than just a deed.
Okay, so if somebody sees this little story we're doing in Medina, in Wadsworth, in fill-in-the-blank community, and they want their community to get involved, what's involved? I mean, does it cost X number of dollars? You have to sign up? You have to get a website? What's this going to look like?
This is the beautiful part about commitment. This commitment takes $0. It's so minimally invasive. And if you look at the breadth of the final product, the vision of the final product is so grand. Entire communities getting behind kindness, but promoting it down to the churches, promoting it down to the schools, promoting it down to the community groups. That's got to be pretty daunting, right? Carl, it doesn't have to be. This is a $0 investment with such high rewards. What I mean by that is if the top of the communities, community leaders, can advocate for this, and selfishly and preferably, I would love for it to be in a formal manner, perhaps a proclamation. Now it has a platform, and now it gives more muscle behind the initiative when I will go and talk to church groups, and I will go and talk to small businesses, which I have already, and even some larger businesses. They're all on my calendar. I am going to have these discussions. So if we can have the endorsement of community leadership, that comes with zero cost. And then what I would ask at that point is for the community is just one more thing, to use their reach, to use their ability to promote. And all those things come with zero cost. It's either a press release or an email to the business community, an email to the church groups, an email to the community groups, and perhaps their social media. So I'm looking for endorsement, buy-in, and promotion. None of those things come with $1 of a cost. But boy, the rewards are so big.
Okay. And have you picked a day for your Random Act of Kindness Day?
I absolutely have. We talked about my dad. He is the inspiration behind all of this. And there's a story, there's a little bit longer of a story that layered itself to where you might think it was coincidence that it happened. This particular thing happened on my father's anniversary date of his passing. But I don't look at it as a coincidence. This occurrence took place as serendipity to me. And so I decided I wanted to create this day in a meaningful way. So I established March 6th. That's my dad's birthday. And March 6th is my vision of Random Act of Kindness Day, not only in this community, but in the community that I was born and raised in, because that's the community my dad lived in all those years and did all of his kind deeds. And also my place of employment and all these communities in the middle. I plan to go to all of them, but I do plan to do it on March 6th because to me that's a very appropriate day. I wanted to make sure it was a day that school was in session because schools will play a large part in this. Carl, can you identify one small child who does not thrive on doing something kind for somebody and then being applauded for it?
Yeah.
There
They
are,
smile ear to ear. They
yes,
boast about it. They'll tell their friends. They'll tell strangers about it. Yeah.
yes. So, but how many opportunities do they have to do this formally beyond their family upbringing? Let's give them a holiday. Let's give them a holiday to celebrate kindness. Let's give them a platform. And you know what, Carl? Let's take it one more step. Let's make this a learning and teaching component as well. When they go back to school, they can either write about it or talk about it. And there will be 3 questions. What did you do? How did it make that person feel? And how did it make you feel? I cannot think of a more valuable life lesson for these young children who may not have opportunities to do these sorts of things ordinarily.
Yeah. And, you know,
Let's put it on a plate for them.
I wonder if you ever heard this story. There was a story I read a number of years ago that there was this kid. He really didn't fit into class. And one day, another kid saw him walking down the sidewalk, and he had all his books, and he cleaned out his locker. And school had another 3 or 4 weeks left in session. And the kid who really didn't know him saw that he was having trouble carrying all this stuff home. And this is supposedly a true story. And he stopped and said, "Hey, you know, I noticed you're having a little issue because you got a lot of stuff. Can I help you out here?" You know, and he helped him carry the stuff home, and they started a friendship, and they became close. And the young man who was carrying the books later was the valedictorian of his class, and he was speaking about that day, and he said the reason he had cleaned out his locker because his intent was to go home and kill himself. And
Oh my gosh.
that child who was a peer of his, who didn't know him, stopped and helped him, and it totally changed his life. So you just never know when one little thing of kindness can impact somebody in a profoundly big way.
You absolutely never know. Boy, what a chilling story that was. But
Yeah.
if true, that speaks to why I feel this is so important.
Yeah, I would
And
agree.
Carl, these are not ideas that nobody else would have. But I just felt that somebody needs to at least get the ball rolling. We can't take the second and third step until we've taken the first one, right?
Got it. So if somebody wanted more information or they want to get involved in this initiative, they want you to come and talk to their group, how could they get in touch with you? Do you have an email? Probably the best way, because you put your phone number, you're going to get all kinds of ladies calling you and stuff. Man, want you to meet them. Email's better.
Now I'm off my focus now. Thank you very much for that, Carl. There's a couple of ways. Certainly an email. Please, by all means, anybody can email me at bof3820@gmail.com. But I really encourage anyone who might be watching, please go to our Facebook page. It's called RAK3633. RAK for Random Act of Kindness. 3633 is my dad's birthday. So like us, follow us, ask questions, and then we'll see where it goes from there. I do plan to take this out, like I was saying, to other communities. And for instance, I'm speaking in front of a large group of people on July 1st in another East Side community. So we're going to get rolling here. So please, I encourage anybody to email me at, again, bof3820@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook at RAK3633.
I have 2 questions. When you accept the Nobel Peace Prize, would you just let me know? I mean,
Of course.
I don't know if I can be there. It depends on where it is.
Yep.
If I got anything on my calendar.
You'll be among the first people invited,
let me
sure.
know.
Yeah.
And
We
then-
haven't established a date, but I'm sure it's coming.
And then second, is there anything that we haven't touched on? Anything you want to throw out there that you might have glossed over, or one point that you want to just drive home as we get ready to close up?
I think the point that I would like to drive home the most is we'll take 2 of these. What I'm asking for and why I think it's necessary. What I'm asking for is community leaderships to buy into the idea, endorse it formally, and to utilize their reach, their ability to promote. And why I think it's needed is for reasons that you shared and the reasons that I've experienced. It touches people. It changes the course of people's moments, but mornings, days, and perhaps even weeks. It makes a difference. And I think it's so overdue. And again, I may give you examples of why it's overdue when I pull out of this parking lot. It's all around us. We need to start winning. We need to start having kindness be the norm again.
I would agree with you. So I did something that you didn't know anything about.
Did you do something kind
I
for me,
thought
Carl?
it would close the show on a high note. Don't open this because you'll start crying and all this other stuff.
Plus, there's an audience.
Yeah. Then over there, why is he so sensitive? You know, but again, I want to do something kind for you because I've met a handful of people in my life who I become suspicious with initially because they're so nice, you know, and you're one of them. And there's not a lot, you know, because when somebody impresses me as being very nice, I'm a little suspicious. I spent 36 years in law enforcement, and I figure if somebody's being nice to me, they want something. But you're one of those folks that were nice just because you were nice. You know what I mean? You're always considerate of other folks. And I think about your dad, and I think that's the way he was. You know?
You just described
always
my dad.
kind, calm, and level-headed, and jovial. And I never saw your dad in a bad mood. Never heard him yell. You know what I mean? Again, I think he taught you well, and now you're trying to teach others. And if there's something I can do to help you along the way in this journey, you let me know, and I'll help you out.
I being here today is more than I probably could have even asked for. So I so appreciate that. I should be thanking you. And
Should have got me a gift, but yeah.
it's in the mail. It's in the mail.
There'll be time for that. But again, it's a gift to spend time with people who are genuinely nice and care about others, give back to the community. And so this has been a joy, a passion project. I've got passion projects. I can see this is a passion project for
Absolutely.
you. And however I can help you, let me know, and you can count on me.
You have not heard the last of me.
Hooah. All right. Thank you for joining us. And take care and make sure you do something kind, A, for yourself, but B, more importantly, for someone else. Take care and be safe.
Thank you.